A warm welcome to all the esteemed speakers, panelists, participants for joining us at the Education and Skill Development Summit 2021, organized by ANZ India Business Chamber. We would like to thank our sponsors who have supported us in putting together the summit: AAMC Training Group, Saraswat Bank, Marwadi University, Murdoch University, PSGR Krishnamal College, James Cook University, and Emerson Migration Law. I'm Niyati Khanna, and I shall be your moderator for the program as the committee member of Education and Skill Development at the ANZ India Business Chamber. I am the co-founder of Diplomathon Global and director of Apogeo Education, serving the school education sector, focusing on experiential learning, global orientation, and bridging the gap between classroom and the real world across 15 countries. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. We are at a critical juncture amidst the pandemic, where education has been disrupted and is now on its road to recovery. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have amongst us an esteemed managing committee of education stalwarts with subject matter experts who shall be enlightening us about learnings revolving around advancements in education, its challenges, technology and crisis management amidst the pandemic, focus on employability, diverse perspectives, and tapping on the dynamism of this fraternity across geographies. We are all at a defining moment for the world's children and young people. We thank all the esteemed leaders for being a part of our inaugural summit and gracing the occasion whilst imparting us your mind share in an ever-evolving process we all call education. To repair our planet, education and skills are the key. So sit back and relax as we all get ready for a knowledge-enhancing program. Feel free to share specific questions for our speakers that you might have via the chat. We would like to begin the summit with the video from our first sponsor, AAMC Training Group. May we have the video, please?
AAMC Training Group is an Australian-owned registered training organisation that also has offices located in India, Indonesia and the Philippines. Our extensive course catalogue includes finance and business certification courses and a wide range of continued professional development courses covering areas from professional development to becoming a technology expert. Our main AAMC Training Group site and learning management system has been built for corporate members, individuals, schools and colleges, giving them a place to enrol, complete and manage their courses. Here you will also find our online virtual classrooms. Due to the rising need for remote education, we are running virtual classrooms over video conferences, allowing you to get your certifications from home. On top of this, we have also recently developed additional resources and sites to make the learning experience more fluid and efficient for our students. Firstly, there's our newly developed CPD Rise platform. This is a simple to navigate business tool which provides flexible learning solutions, available to corporate groups, business owners and individuals to gain new skills, train for a new career or keep up to date with industry standards. CPD Rise will provide the ability to create your own corporate group or become an instructor and create your own courses. The tool available will provide easy management solutions for reporting to communicating with your corporate organisation, business team or school. You can utilise the CPD Rise courses or earn commission by selling your own courses that you choose to share with others. We have also recently created our brand new Study Hub. This is a fully customizable platform in which companies can manage and track students or staff's learning journey. The Study Hub enables schools, colleges and universities to have their own courses loaded into the system, or alternatively, you can purchase the courses from us. This system gives our clients their own branded learning management system that they can connect to their own site. On top of all these, we have also developed our AAMC Training Group app that is available on both iOS and Android. This app allows you to access your course content and materials on your mobile device, allowing you to study anytime, anywhere, whether you are connected to a network or not. AAMC Training Group's goal is to help build the business professionals of tomorrow and to assist as many people as we can in their learning journey. Whether you are looking to study in our online virtual classrooms using our Test Out Lab simulation, or you would rather study independently on your own terms, AAMC Training Group is here to assist your learning journey and can provide you with the support you need to excel in your chosen field.
Thank you. AAMC Training works closely with industry and employer groups to ensure training is both relevant and of a high standard. We welcome you and thank you for your support. And now we begin the summit. I would like to introduce our guiding light, Honorable Chairman of the Education and Skill Development Committee at the ANZ India Business Chamber, Provost, Marwadi University, Dr. Professor Sandeep Sancheti. Professor Sancheti is an institution builder, policy planner, regular columnist on various academic policies, promoter of sports in higher education, and well known for his intellectual strategic foresight. Formerly, Dr. Sancheti headed 8 central government institutions of national importance, thereby setting a record of being the exclusive one to have done so. As a unique distinction, he served in a variety of institutions. He is a chairman, board of governors for various prestigious colleges, and also serving many professional bodies like FICCI, CII, and the Atal Innovation Mission. In addition, he has been on various national level bodies of the University Grants Commission, AICTE, and AIU for education-related matters, and been a part of Indian delegations abroad. I invite Professor Sancheti to deliver the welcome address.
Thank you, Madam Niyati. Very good morning, good afternoon, and greetings to each one of you who are present here today to participate in this online summit organized by ANZ India Business Council. First of all, I'd like to thank each one of you for joining the summit on education and skill development being organized by ANZ IBC, as has been told to you. I feel great and very proud to share that the theme of this year's summit happens to be redefining international collaborations in the changing scenario. We all know that why it is important, and we all know why we are here today to attend it. I extend a very warm welcome to all the renowned speakers, the panelists, and the supporters who have taken their valuable time and have joined us today to be part of this summit. We are honored to have you all, the distinguished speakers. I'd like to name them and welcome them by saying that Dr. Jeff Mazzini from the AAMC Training Group, Professor Abhishek Bhati from James Cook University, Dr. Vandana Lulla from Podar International School, Dr. Jessica Gallagher from the University of Queensland, Mr. Santosh, the MD and CEO of India Business Chamber, and Mr. Birur from Excelsoft Technologies Private Limited. The panelists are Dr. Ashley Jones from Australian Council of Professions, Mr. Ramnath Ramnan, the former member of Niti Aayog and with Tata Consultancy Services, Dr. Albi Anand Kurian, the Management Development Institute of Singapore, and then, of course, our moderator for the session would be Mr. Santosh Kumar, and the moderator for the entire program would be Madam Niyati Khanna. So welcome to all of them. I also welcome all the dignitaries and the participants from various organizations, various countries who have joined us here in big number for the summit. Before I give my inputs on the higher education, I'd like to give a small brief to you about the ANZ itself, the ANZ IBC. And I'd like to state that with a number of initiatives which we have done, the ANZ IBC has been emerging as one of the most active business chambers at the international level, and also the first chamber which could realize the great potential in connecting the business community in a trilateral way between India, Australia, and Singapore. I would probably say this is an initiative which can be referred to in acronym form as IAS, India, Australia, and Singapore. And by the way, this word or this acronym is very, very famous in India. No one can forget it because our bureaucracy is known by the label called IAS. And therefore, let's remember that ANZ IBC is driving IAS or relationship between the IAS. The chamber's main strength lies in the large network of contacts, continuous focus on business matching, and providing opportunities for business community for interactions and informative sessions connecting the three countries mainly. But we are going to expand our footprint also, possibly Middle East and Dubai and some other countries will also join us in a slightly bigger way. What differentiates the chamber from the others is the structure of its operation. It has members on its board from various committees and in various sectoral committees also. And they are typically from all the three countries, but we are ready to add and take more members to add more value to it. This particular event, which we have coined and which we are participating today, is mainly to focus on the theme, obviously, the recent developments in the education and skill development sectors. In India, particularly, the changes are much bigger, I would say, and therefore we all will benefit from that. But then it also focuses on what we call the opportunities for collaborations, also the university industry partnerships, the corporate training and placements, and of course, e-learning and learning more about the present scenario. These are some of the focuses which we have through various expert talks and speakers, and also through panel discussions. We'll be touching base with some of these aspects during the event. Now, let me come to a small input from my side on the higher education to which I belong to in India. And higher education in India is in excited mode, I would say, in different times where it is raring to go and do wonders or maybe do different things right now. The reasons of this tremendous growth or reasons for this excitement or change are possibly threefold. Number one, COVID has changed all of us, which we know. Number two, last year around the same time, almost a year back, you can say, in July, we had the new education policy 2020, which gave us which became a guiding light for many changes. And since then, we've been talking about it, digesting it, trying to understand it, and trying to follow and implement certain things. And finally, the third major change happens to be the educational technology, for which we had resistance here, or maybe it was not so mature, or even if it was mature, it was not cost effective. There were various things. All the three things combined together is trying to reshape everything what is happening in the Indian higher education. Time won't be enough for me to touch many important aspects. I call it as a dreamy policy. I call it as a policy which will drive us for next 20 years. I call it as a policy which has probably covered everything from UG to PG, you can say, or KG to PG also, you can say. That means it is a very seamless kind of a policy, and I'm sure all of you will know a little bit about it. And if not, probably those documents are available, and we should take benefit of it as partners from outside India and from within the India also. All in all, it's going to have a big impact. The major impact would be that it will increase our gross enrollment ratio probably to 50%. Whatever Indian higher education is today will be doubled in next 15 years. So you can imagine how much big the cake is and how much share you can have in case you play an active role through partnerships and other things which are there. There is going to be a huge growth of the multidisciplinary research-oriented university. We try to call them as Meru type universities. We are trying to give a lot of autonomy to the institutions so they become degree awarding. Right now, that number is confined to less than 1,000. But in next 15 years or 20 years, it will be 10,000, tenfold increase in the universities or university-like institutions which can give degrees which are there. So likewise, there are many impactful things which they have envisioned. Hope we will possibly achieve all that. But importantly for this particular meeting, I would say, there is a huge acceptance of skill and vocational courses with the mainstream courses. Henceforth, we may not require separate degrees. We may not require specializations or names which are distinguishing online or offline, distance or this, or face-to-face, or even the skills and other things. So everything will merge and people will make their own degrees. Something like that would happen. There will be a huge emphasis on what we call blended and hybrid teaching learning, which was kind of, we were against or not really promoting it. So there is a good prospects for overall growth for all the players. I'm seeing a lot of participants here are from various sectors of the education who are helping the education sector from outside. They will give us a lot of benefit. And some schemes like ABC, Academic Bank of Credit, National Educational Technology Framework, National Research Foundation, the Faculty Development Initiatives, and most importantly for all of us, internationalization is now a very welcome thing in India. And then regulatory reforms, that they will not be an obstacle for doing something new. These are all the avenues available in higher education. I'm sure we will take advantage of this. With this, I would not like to take much time and would like to conclude. And I would like to, first of all, before saying a final word of conclusion, I'd like to commend and recognize my dedicated team led by Mr. Santosh and all the people who have made this event functional in such a testing and uncertain times. So kudos to them, thank you to them. And finally, I'm sure all of us, our supporting organizations, and most importantly, the participants will get an opportunity to learn a lot as well as make new connects today to drive our academic and professional interests further. With these words, I once again very happily welcome you all. Enjoy the next 2 hours of learning and interaction and probably making big foundations for the future. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Professor Sanchetti, for sharing with us the objective of this summit and providing us a deep insight to the agenda and walking us through the policy changes in education from KG to PG and skills inclusion. We would like to invite our next program sponsor, Murdoch University, a public university in Perth, Australia, with campuses also in Singapore and Dubai, for supporting our initiative. May we have the video, please? Unlocking the Indo-Australian business potential, the torchbearer and visionary of ANZI BC. Please welcome Mr. P. Santosh, Managing Director and CEO of ANZ India Business Chamber. Mr. P. Santosh has been actively involved in the development of Indo-Australian business for the past 16 years. He has coordinated 13 Indian business delegations to Australia and 1 each to Singapore and Malaysia. He was instrumental in expanding several Indian companies to Australia and many Australian companies back here in India. He has addressed several international forums, and the latest being the ICAI Global Week in September 2020. Mr. Santosh, I welcome you for the commencement.
Thank you, Niyati, for the kind introduction. Dr. Sandeep Sanchetti, Chairman of the Education and Skill Development Committee, other committee members, distinguished speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Let me extend a special welcome to all of you to the Chamber's Education and Skill Development Summit 2021. At the outset, I would like to mention that this year's summit has almost equal participation from India and Australia, with some representations from Singapore and Middle East. All of you can access the list of participants in an e-book from the Chamber's website in the next couple of hours. ANZ India Business Chamber has been actively involved in the transformation of trade relations in the international level, with a special focus on Indo-Australian trade. With a chapter in Singapore, the Chamber is facilitating many opportunities for business interactions and collaborations, as we see Singapore as a connecting link between India and Australia. The Chamber has a major focus on education and skill development. Several institutions and universities from this sector are members of the Chamber. We see education as a growth story and promising sector in the India-Singapore-Australia relationship. I request the participants who are not members of the Chamber, please be part of our international work. And together we can help each other in building a strong India-Australia-Singapore relationship. The COVID-19 pandemic has been the greatest disruptor of education across the world. The hard reality is that the pandemic has advanced digital learning in ways we didn't imagine just 2 years ago. One major outcome of the huge scale of e-learning is that this is breaking geographical barriers and make higher education more inclusive. Secondly, if you want to learn something from Australia or Singapore on its business culture and practices, why not learn them direct from a university or an established training institute from those countries? This is possible now. A lot more skills, a lot more specialized knowledge for millions of young people are now within the reach across the world with availability of new and interactive global content and access to high quality teachers. We also experienced the rising of several educational technology startups par excellence with some of the leading brands. Several institutions have now set up in-house incubation centers, which brings out talented minds with entrepreneurial skills. With 43 universities and over 5,000 technical training institutions across Australia, Indian students find Australia as a favorite nation for higher studies, a country with very high standard of living, research and development facilities, healthcare, transport, infrastructure, and government services all above international averages. The Indian student market was worth $6.6 billion to the Australian economy in the financial year 2019-20, second only to China as the top source country of foreign students studying in Australia. With 8% of the population being Indians, Singapore has consistently maintained its position among the top 15 cities in the world for students, according to QS Top Universities. India is a land of opportunities for institutions in Australia and Singapore for educational collaborations, right from research to study abroad programs and faculties exchange. Hundreds of collaborations are already in place in the India-Australia-Singapore relationship. The University Grants Commission has approved full-fledged online degree programs in 38 universities across India this week for a wide variety of courses ranging from business administration to journalism and mass communication to data science and liberal arts, which gives great opportunity for collaborations from Australia and Singapore. All the organizations supporting today's event has a strong India, Australia, Singapore connections. Many of them have presence in all the three countries. I'm sure this will be a very useful session for all of you, and thank you all for joining today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Santosh, for sharing your foresight and inspiring us with your greater objective at the ANZ India Business Chamber. Every successful journey begins from a starting point. That is where all the excitement and expectations, the euphoria and the momentum start building up. The emergence of this three-nation group, India, Singapore, Australia, should open up significantly more opportunities for business in these countries than a simple bilateral trade relationship. Moving ahead, I would like to introduce our program sponsor, PSGR Krishnamal College, an autonomous arts and science college located in Tamil Nadu, India. It has been recognized as the College of Excellence by the University Grants Commission. May we have the video, please? Be on a day like this, then around all this electronic equipment where people across 6 countries are meeting thanks to technology. Although technology finally being integrated into education, its use for teaching and learning still remains a challenge. Having said that, the potential of technology to enhance learning cannot be overemphasized. I welcome our first speaker, a force to reckon with from Australia, joining us. Please welcome the Managing Director of AAMC Training Group, Dr. Jeff Mazzini, who shall be sharing his excerpts on why education delivery must join hands with technology. Jeff established a registered training organization in 2001.
Hello. Hi. My name is Jeff Mazzini, and today I wish to present to you my findings. And first off, welcome to everyone, and congratulations to ANZ for this Education Committee for this day. It's been well prepared and a lot of work's gone into it. Before I set the scene, I'd like to ask you all to change your thinking right now. We've all been stuck in our houses. We've all been forced to move forward and learn the new digital world, new ways of learning, and it's now too late to move backwards. We must move forwards. Where are we now? The things I will look at today, hopefully my presentation will disturb your thinking enough for you to make changes where required, as it's no longer about us and what we individually believe and think, but it's more about how do we build a workforce for the future that can help the human race survive. Today, as I say, within my presentation, I hope that you all understand by the time we finish that change is no longer an option. It is a must for us to all to move forward with. Effects of education not keeping up with the digital world. The digital world has presented many things to us. There is skill shortages. Technology is replacing job roles faster than ever, and those job roles will not come back again. Because of the skill shortages, we are seeing rising wages. And rising wages is a very dangerous thing for a lot of countries, especially Australia, because the faster the wages keep rising, the more that all our companies out there have to introduce new technologies. And the reason we have to do it is for survival, because the big four global players, internet players, are already establishing education that suits the needs of individual students across many countries. Consumers are seeking and demanding low price products, speed of delivery and choice. It's that what we all have to, doesn't matter what business you're in today, you have to actually be able to provide that. If you can get those three things right, you will have a good, successful, surviving business model. Employers today are also seeking skilled workers. They're not getting the required skills coming forward. And every worker today must have digital competencies. It doesn't matter what they're doing, but they all have to use technology. We hear people say that they're digital competent because they can do social media and emails. That's not enough. The world needs 174 million digital competent workers. Australia alone needs 6.5 million digital competent workers by 2025. We are now getting closer to that date, and the model is too far out. Let's have a look at what digital disruption is. Digital disruption is a transformation that is caused by emerging digital technologies and business models. These innovative new technologies models can impact the value of existing products and services offered in the industry, including education. A well-known case of Kodak, it failed to see what was happening with the advancement of technology and hence paid the price. We are well down the road of digitization, and to ignore will lead us all to irrelevance. Regulating. Right, global online providers already providing digital solutions. Repetitive job roles can now be replaced very quickly, and white collar roles, by introducing art and machine learning. Another thing that regulators need to look at is about allowing online examinations. Technology is available, properly supervised technology is available. We actually use it ourselves, and it is proven to be very successful. I constantly read articles where the examinations are being put off because the students couldn't turn up to the examination room. Trainers' job roles have to change. The current trainer job role, which I'll go into further, must change. Using artificial intelligence and machine learning to do your assessing. The systems are out there now, yet we're constantly using humans to sit in a back room somewhere and assess work that they're not actually involved in. They don't know what's happened up the front end, what the delivery was like, because everyone delivers things differently. When at the end of the day, once the machine learning is set up, it is far more efficient than what a human would be able to do it, and faster. From what I've seen, you can do it in a matter of moments, where it can take up to 3 weeks to 4 weeks or more to get things done. Another thing that I feel needs looking at is examinations. The old way of assessing a person's abilities is all wrong. It needs to change. Getting them to undertake annual examinations or examinations throughout the year does not mean that they're a smart person. It just means they're better at rote learning, or they've got a better short-term memory than the other people who are for the examinations. There is technology out there now that can measure and monitor students progressively through everything they do through all the years of education. We are in fact using a system from an overseas supplier that is doing exactly that. Education institutions must remain relevant to survive. Cost of education, far too expensive. Making changes as above will enable more affordable education to a lot more people. So the regulators have a big job ahead of them, and there's a lot of changes to come through. But if they don't do these things, it'll end up with big problems for that country. Teachers. Teachers need ongoing skilling across many areas, but every teacher in every profession teaching should be digital competent. It's a must for these days. We need to have teachers that have literacy and numeracy and mathematics skills. As an example, I tried over 10 years ago to get numeracy skills put into education in Australia, and I was duly informed that due to the stress and pressures on teachers now, there wasn't enough room to put that in there. So nothing's changed in 10 years. We need things to change. We need to have more respect for teachers. And a lot across the countries I'm in, a lot of them are lowly paid and not trained properly. And therefore, the end outcome is not good across many areas. But imagine if you got your teachers trained and skilled properly, each country could add more to their bottom line each year. Let's look at it. Currently, my view is that the role of a teacher is to deliver class or instructions. But if you currently see what a teacher does, there's a lot of things there I call stuff. Too much stuff and no time to ensure that every student in their classroom is competent. If you move over to what the world should look like now in the digital world, technologies allow teachers to monitor and assess and understand each student in their classroom and who is struggling with the lessons being taught. That enables them to free them up to spend time to help those people, because quite often many people drop out of school because they're not understanding and they're not getting the support they need. So it's a very simple process to reverse all this whole process, is to make sure that everyone gets through in every classroom. I know, and we all know across countries, people get pushed up to the next level, even if they fail, just to get them out of the classroom or to move them on. That's not going to give you the proper growing skilled workforce you need. Right. I believe the foundations of education must start at the bottom end of the rail. When you build a house, you also got to put the foundations down. Education foundations are the teachers, but you also got to start to train the young children. My grandsons, 3 of them were on iPads before they were 1 year old because they have no fear. It's only adults have a fear of technology and how to work them and that, because they don't want to show they can't do it or they fear of failure or whatever. Kids don't. Parents need to be part of the learning journey. There's no good pushing everything onto the school teacher hoping something's going to happen. But you imagine if from preschool, when a child goes into year 1 primary school, if they know a little bit about literacy, numeracy, and digital, it will help them, secure them, and it'll stop, once again, these foundations will stop a lot of dropouts occurring. I'll give a summary. Without quick and ongoing regulatory and structural changes, institutions will become irrelevant. Without constantly updating course materials, institutions will become irrelevant. Today, things change that fast and on a regular basis, yet I'm still seeing course manuals and course materials going back many years being used in classrooms. It's just, you can't do that anymore. Implementing with without digital solutions, institutions will become irrelevant. Without skilled teachers and job role changes, institutions will become irrelevant. Use technology to progressively monitor and assess students, not stressing students out with yearly examinations. Rote learning only shows you have a good short-term memory. It doesn't mean they're the smartest person in that room. Teachers and parents share the responsibilities and share the students' records. The technology I've seen, you can give access to the parents. The parents can hook into it and they can see at any time how their daughter or son's going at school, which then keeps that parent out of the classroom. One of the biggest problems teachers face is angry parents or interfering parents. To take the stress off teachers, if they share the records with the parents, and the parents can also take more active role in upskilling their people. And if the parents don't know, there's plenty of software courses out there now that will provide opportunity for the student to learn. That's the danger. There is technology out there for people to learn, and if schools don't do it, that's where they'll go. Wireless technology has been a reason or an excuse for many why they can't go and deliver online learning. Elon Musk, through his Starlink organization and Google, Musk alone has launched 1,500 satellites into the sky to cover the world, and Google's got theirs up there. There is going to be, Musk reckons he's got another 10 to 20 billion to put into it, and they will just have very fast internet speed globally. For the countries that have been resisting and the change and not establishing the internet, those times are drawing to an end. Right. Don't be fooled by the term disruptions. Many people misinterpret this as a meaning. The process of digital disruption is a negative one, that it's an attack on their business. In reality, it's only a negative force for those who choose to ignore it and who try to fight it. I run into constantly within colleges, schools, universities, where people tell me to go away because I'm bringing technology and it's going to take their job. I say to them, no, not me, but technology is going to take your job and you won't have one if you don't join hands with it and come on the journey. Now, the first step to changing the world happens in your minds. You all have to decide, is this too radical or is this where you need to go to? Are you ready to change the way you see the world, or will you become irrelevant? Thank you very much. That is my presentation. I hope that we all got something out of it. But as you can see, I've gone from one end of the spectrum right to the other end, because if you can get to the other end, skilled labour forces will be available and more people will be able to gain employment and less dropouts. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff, for deconstructing the combination of education and technology and a 360-degree emphasis on all stakeholders with your presentation. Moving forward, we present to you our program sponsor, James Cook University, a public university in North Queensland, Australia. JCU is a teaching and research institution. The university's main campuses are located in the tropical cities of Cairns and Townsville, and one in the city-state of Singapore. Thank you for supporting our initiative. Can we please have the video?
James Cook University is Australia's leading university for the tropics, offering excellence in teaching from highly integrated industry experience and sophisticated research. James Cook University is a vibrant university operating across 2 countries and 3 tropical campuses, with locations in the North Queensland cities of Cairns and Townsville and in the city-state of Singapore.
From technology, we now shift our focus to crisis management in education amidst the pandemic. Resilience, reorientation, and reinvention have been the 3 R's of managing crisis amidst COVID-19. We bring forward reflections from a university who has been there, done that, and more. I welcome our next speaker, Professor Abhishek Singh Bhati, Campus Dean, James Cook University, to share his success story. Professor Bhati continues to contribute to JCU's Tropical Asian initiatives. His efforts guide the learning, student experience, and teaching amidst academic governance of programs offered in JCU Singapore. Abhishek Bhati's research investigates resilience planning in tourism, sustainable development of cities, and scholarship of learning and teaching. Recent projects he has conducted have studied tourist vandalism and effectiveness of stakeholder responses to tourism developments. Professor Bhati's other projects include incorporating work-integrated learning-based strategies in tertiary education as well. He has been successful in securing collaborative grant with Office of Learning and Teaching, Australian Learning and Teaching Council, external industry grant, and several internal research grants. Over to you, Professor Bhati.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nayati, for that very kind introduction. Very good morning, good afternoon to all participants and fellow panelists. I would like to acknowledge and thank ANZ India Business Chamber for the opportunity, afforded to me to talk to you all, and address you today. As Niyati mentioned earlier on, moving from technology to the resilience, what I'm going to do is talk about JCU's experience through the pandemic situation last 18 months. So my reflections are primarily based on the Singapore campus of James Cook University. As you would have observed from the video, we have quite a strong presence in North Queensland, as well as capital city Brisbane in Queensland. But I'm addressing and coming in from the Singapore campus. And I must also acknowledge Professor Sanchiti's an acronym IAS, which is quite catchy, where you look at India, Australia, and Singapore, and Singapore being the bridge between India and Australia in terms of higher education. So I'm mindful of the time which has been allocated to me, and I don't want to take beyond the time that I have. But again, another congratulatory note to the seminar organizers. I was very keenly observing the ticker board, the participant ticker board, and when it tipped over to 3-digit, that was amazing. And we have more than 100 participants, close to 120 participants, which are live at the moment. So that's phenomenal. Now, please allow me to share my presentation. And I have a very quick presentation, which I hope you should be able to see, probably not in the right format now. Just give me a minute. Are you seeing it the proper way or the other way around? I think it's the other way around, right?
It's looking all right. You can just make it full screen, Professor Bhatti.
Yeah. So is it full screen now?
Yeah, full screen.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Sancheti. So this is, the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through some of my reflections, which I have put together in collaboration with some of my colleagues, ADLT, Associate Dean of Learning and Teaching, Dr. Caroline Wong, and our learning technology specialist, Miss Esther Feng. This presentation is pretty much based on retrospection inquiry. As we all know, there are different styles and approaches to learning and teaching. And here, we are looking into our past experiences and how we can shape our future based on our learnings from the past experiences. And that's what the next few minutes will be focused on. So what happened with JCU, is not exclusive to JCU. Perhaps, most education institution, higher education or K-12 institution around the globe, they faced a turning point in education where disruption, which perhaps Jeff, referred to earlier on, promoted, a transition, a very quick transition from 100% face-to-face, in-person learning and teaching to 100% online teaching. In Singapore, it was referred to as HBL, home-based learning. And of course, in other institutions, in several of our campuses in Australia, they didn't have to go to 100% online learning for a long time. So they had a combination of online and blended learning. But whatever the mode was, it did certainly force the organization to rethink what they are doing. And of course, it resulted in quite a shock both to the student and the staff body, academic and professional likewise. From JCU's perspective, what COVID or the pandemic did, COVID-19 or pandemic did, it accelerated the digital change in learning and teaching. We were on that path for some time, just as several other institutions would be, but it really accelerated it multifolds for JCU. And when you speed up something, beyond your control, then there are several issues that crop up, and it's about the management of those issues that becomes critical. Things like digital literacy, both for academic staff as well as for students. Digital citizenship, because it's not just whether you're comfortable with technology, but are you able to use technology? Are you able to benefit from technology? Are you not harming others through technology? And then I'm going to talk about harm in one of my later slides. And most importantly, as you can see towards the right-hand side of my slide, maintaining sense of belonging. We have had students who have been learning online since the middle of last year. They have not stepped onto the Singapore campus for more than a year. So their association with the university is limited to the screen that similar to like I'm addressing to you, rather than the campus building right behind me is my virtual background, or the immersive experience that you would have, what you would expect in higher education. So how to maintain or to develop that sense of belonging, especially in new students, that was definitely one of the key challenges that we faced, and we are still grappling with it. We haven't found the magic one to solve that issue. Moving along, just sorry, I'm toggling between slides and there seemed to be some lag here. So I'm going to focus more on how we at JCU, did our rethinking in terms of learning, in terms of teaching, and of course, assessment. And that becomes critical. In fact, as most of the academics would agree with me, academic integrity is one of the key areas of concern within the academic body, and how to assure or how to provide assurance of learning becomes a certain aspect. So let me look into the two main groups of stakeholders, first being the student, and I think that is important. When you talk about digital literacy, yes, most of our students are very ready and familiar with using digital devices like the smartphones or iPads and other forms, but whether they are ready for learning online. So we started with a program called DigiLearn. DigiLearn was a collaboration between several departments within the university. Learning Center, which has qualified people that help students with the learning skills, Student Services Library, and the objective of this DigiLearn initiative is, as you can see in this concentric circles here, the flower that we look into, how we can better prepare students, how we can provide them with academic skills, study skills, and digital skills in time for their studies. I'll give you a very good example. Many students thought by having a laptop, they'll be able to learn online. What they did not realize is the laptop should also have a camera installed on it. Otherwise, you can't participate. A simple thing, but an important thing. Many students thought that just having internet connection is enough. What about bandwidth? In several countries where our students come from, we had issues of accessibility and connectivity. That these are some issues or some factors that were beyond our control, but we had to educate students and come up with skills, make them literate of how to manage them. If you cannot, rectify, at least manage these skills. And of course, how to make them data literate, information literate, as well as language skills. So I think that became a very important initiative for JCU. We had a very student-centric approach, whether it was through videos which were made available on our website. So the importance of communication, which I'll come to later on, and have our materials organized in student-friendly format, like the tiles that you can see here, which is taken directly from, let's say, a web page. Having academics, lecturers, teachers, professors talk about how they would like students to engage with the material, and at the same time have fellow students having some peer experiences to sharing how they have engaged with the material, what was their learning experience, what worked for them, what didn't work for them. So these became some learnings that help students and reflect on their practices and how they can approach the same thing differently next week and the week after and throughout the trimester. One of the initiatives which I really wish to highlight here becomes EMAS. EMAS in Malay. Malay is one of the local languages, is gold, yeah? And certainly this EMAS is gold for us. EMAS is nothing but a peer tutor group. We have senior students who work with new students, fresh students, and some subjects and help them with the learning skills. There are many students who are not very forthcoming to seek help with academic staff. So these students are very comfortable to go to a peer student in an EMAS peer tutor. And these EMAS peer tutors definitely were very helpful in conducting virtual sessions whenever there was a lockdown, or in Singapore, it was called a circuit breaker where no one could get out of their homes, or even having some face-to-face meetings in now, let's call it the post-pandemic situation. So again, one such initiative. Feedback, and again, I think it was Jeff who highlighted the importance of analytics. And this was certainly a big advantage and a big plus for us, that we were able to make use of analytics in getting to know how students are traveling with the online learning. And something that we did earlier on in the trimester was getting a pulse. So just like, doctors would take your pulse to see what's your health as one of the symptoms, measures, I should say. So we took the pulse survey in the very second week of the trimester. We run trimesters in Singapore, and the pulse survey was able to give us how students are facing, what are the problems, and then we could then intervene, provide targeted intervention for individual problems that we had. We had a range of digital assets for students. Again, as I spoke about, whether they were student-led, academic staff-led, as you can see on the right-hand side, we had several videos by academic staff in various disciplines, business, IT, psychology, cybersecurity, and so forth. And on the left-hand side, you can see some other study tools that may be helpful for students across the body. In summary, it was communication that was really important. Communicating with students through website, through our LMS. We have Blackboard as our LMS. Doesn't matter whichever LMS you have. Making sure that there is no disruption in student learning through virtual lectures. Trying to provide continuity in the same format of studies. So if students were used to lecture tutorial format, we tried to maintain that in the very first trimester to minimize transition for students. And then over time, we morphed into more synchronous, asynchronous type of delivery, and even having seminars, as students got more used to learning online, having emails, announcements. In other words, maintain very media-rich presence so that students had multiple ways to reach out to the university and got consistent information. Consistency was important throughout their experience. Of course, students is only one part of the equation. It's really important to even achieve digital literacy within the academic team. And the academic experience was really important as well. And we realized through our practice of COPs, in other words, community of practice, where teachers were able to share their experiences, their successes and the failures and areas of improvement. And they collaboratively worked on issues. Some issues were very individual specific, but there were many other issues that were common across several teaching staff, academic staff. And then we were able to find solutions overnight. And then many staff were more comfortable, confident in delivering the content online. And when teaching staff is comfortable, students also get more motivated. Students are it's very easy for students to see through academic who's nervous, who's fiddling with technology and doesn't know what's going to come next. So we want to make sure that our teachers, our lecturers were very comfortable and 100% on top of their technology. Moving along quickly, just mindful of the time here. I think the most important thing for JCEU to be successful was agility. And that's part of our culture as well. Our ability to mold to any response in the environment and the speed at which we were able to change, having flexibility in our culture is definitely very important. We made sure that we maintain user focus, and the two main users, as I said, were the students, and I gave you some examples, and of course, teaching staff, academic staff, and they as well. But at the same time, there's another group of staff which I have not touched upon, and those are professional staff. Very important people, may not be having direct face-to-face contact in classroom with students, but really important in order to maintain and ensure that the academic machinery continues. Collaboration was key. It would have been impossible just for my team and as an academic or academic team to achieve this on our own. It was a group effort or a combined effort, collaborative effort of student services or any other service functions, academic team, all put together to ensure that we were able to transition from 100% face-to-face to 100% online and make improvements all throughout. The objective was to make changes on a daily basis, small step. But those small steps eventually gave us big changes, and we have been rewarded through the changes by seeing growth in our student numbers, a multi-digit growth in our student numbers last year and again this year. And finally, a very important thing, while we changed, we did not lose sight on quality. Whatever we did, we made sure that it follows our policy procedures. And of course, quality assurance was important, so that whatever changes were done, they were state of the art and world standard, if not more. One of my final slides, mental health and emotional well-being of staff and students. It's not, whatever I say would not do justice to this, because, however much we as an institution try to do, a lot depends upon the environment that students are facing at home, in the home country, if they are international students, even our own teachers, who are, if they're working from home, they have the children, school-going children who are also studying from home. They have other family problems. And then, of course, we have the pandemic on top of everything. So it did take huge toll, mental and emotional toll on staff and students. And we were very mindful of this and kept our tab on providing services, both in-campus services, whenever we were allowed to do so, and of course, online virtual services through counseling, through we have a psychology clinic on campus, thanks to our clinical psychology program. And our psychologists were very, very receptive of both staff and students who had issues and who needed the help. And through that, we were able to emerge victorious towards the other end. So on that note, I thank you for your attention, and I would like to stop sharing and hand it back to you, Niyati. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Bhati, for sharing that crisis is conquered through a positive combination of talents and competencies. Hats off to your leadership at the JCU, which has proven with digital citizenship, learning hasn't stopped. And as for the crisis, the ancient saying goes, Gam ze avor, this too shall pass. And now we would like to thank our sponsor, Saraswat Bank, for supporting our initiative. Marching parallel to the evolving timeline of India, Saraswat Bank enters into its 103rd year of service to the people. Standing the test of time, it has grown to be a pioneer in the urban cooperative banking sector in India. Offering unparalleled financial services, the bank has also been at the forefront in banking initiatives for girls and women. May we have the video, please?
Dare to dream. Saraswat Bank brings you pre-approved education loan at just 8.5%. Special rate of 8% for girl students. 100% finance of course fee. Zero processing fee and benefits like no other. To know more, give a missed call on 902-905-0027. Saraswat Bank, India's largest cooperative bank. Mile yahan, dono jahan.
The United Nations stated the global unemployment was projected to increase by around 2.5 million in 2020. We can only find a sustainable, inclusive path of development if we tackle these kinds of gaps with experiential learning by starting early in school and university. As per McKinsey, more than 30% of jobs could be lost due to automation. As a result, skilling up has become the need of the hour for adopting change by 2030. Our next speaker is known as a blue chip educationist in India. She believes education is a continuous process from womb to tomb. Our next focus area is skills development with a focus on employability. I would like to introduce Dr. Mrs. Vandana Lulla, the director of Podar Group of International Schools, undertaking the international curriculum of IB and Cambridge. She is the Vice President of the South Asian International Baccalaureate Schools Association, appointed as accreditation team member on the prestigious Council of International Schools accreditation team, and has been on the team for schools in India, Hong Kong, China, and Indonesia. Appointed by CFBT London to inspect schools in the UAE, and has inspected more than 200 schools in Dubai. A validated trainer for British Council, has trained more than 200 principals and teachers pan-India. Bestowed with the Rajya Puraskar Award by Maharashtra State Government for selfless work done in the field of education, and the Global Accreditation Award by the British Council for undertaking a research project on developing high-order thinking skills among students. recently awarded the prestigious Mahatma Gandhi Leadership Award for Outstanding Services in Education at the House of Lords, UK. Her prime aim is to give back to society in the form of community service, and her passion is never-ending and infinite. Please welcome Dr. Lulla. We invite you to share your wise words, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Niyati Khanna, for that lovely introduction. And first and foremost, I would like to thank Dr. Professor Sandeep Sancheti, the Chairman of Education Skill Development, and of course, Mr. Santosh, the MD and CEO for ANZ India Business Chamber. And I think the two speakers, I'm very happy to hear the two speakers who spoke this morning, Jeff and Abhishek, who talked about crisis management and also technology integration in education. And I'm happy to share my journey, how we at Pudar International School and College, how we start at a very young age and how we started and how we begin our journey and where we are today. So I'm happy to share that journey with the participants today. Next slide. So when I was looking at this topic, I was really reminded of a hilarious play. I don't know how many of you have watched this play, Refund, which was about a former student in Hungary who, after 40 years of being there, went back to his school and demanded his fees back. It was a wonderful play that talked about how a person does not get an opportunity to work or gets a job after being 40 years of age. It was a hilarious play. And while I was doing my research, I was just a great reflection of this wonderful play. And the question then remains, where are we today? Are we in the same position or not? The next slide. Another book that caught my attention is about What They Don't Teach You at Harvard, written way back in 1984, where they talked about how important it is to make sure that we connect with real life situation, real life applications, and also introduce case studies, which is definitely the need of the hour. And these two incidents are my inspiration of starting my journey. So I'll just start with one Mentimeter, the next one. I would request Niyati to share the link of Mentimeter so that we can have some interaction with the team, with the participants. So the next slide is about, let's analyze the present system of education. And there's a Mentimeter in the chat box. We put up the link, and I would request you to maybe just answer a few questions there. There's some statements. You can say agree. There's one line that you'll have. One is strongly disagree, and the last is strongly agree. So I request the participants form the chat link, take the Mentimeter, and then just answer those statements. So we'll quickly see what happens, what you think, and let's just analyze what's the present system of school education. What do you think is happening? Yeah, thank you, Niyati, for sharing that. So I just request everyone to just click, and then we'll be able to see what does the audience feel, what's the present system of education. There are just some statements which you can agree or disagree. And we'll then flash it up. I'll ask Niyati to then flash that up. So we get to know what people analyze the present system is looking like, feeling like, hearing like for the participants. So did you get some replies, Niyati?
We're still waiting for some replies to come.
Okay, good, thank you. I just want to know because It can just flash on the screen so we can make it a little more engaging.
Sure, sure. Sham, is it possible for you to click on it and share your screen? It would be visible.
It's nice to see what's coming up on this screen. And let's see what the audience have to say for the present system of education. We already heard from Jeff this morning. Okay, so if people will answer, what do you think the present system of education in schools is? You can just click on this line, on this circle, and say whether you agree or strongly disagree. Yeah. So I request the participants to yeah. So Sham, you will get the replies immediately, if, yeah, and then submit if they all have submitted. Okay. So we can see some people are entering their answers. Very good. So now, Sham, you can just show the screen so we'll know some of them who have answered. What is it that the Mentimeter is saying, that the audience are saying? If you refresh and go back, you will see. Are you able to get that? Sham, were you able to do it, or we'll go back to my slide and then come back to this?
It has stopped, so I think we can go back to your slides.
Okay, good. Okay. Usually the Mentimeter shows you an analysis of what's really coming up from the audience. I don't know what happened. That's technology sometimes. Okay, can we go to the next slide? So yeah, we talk about present system of education, which talks more about content-based learning. Basic emphasis is on content, knowledge, and understanding, and the total emphasis on what to learn rather than how to learn. No opportunities are provided for children to develop their 21st century skills. Very, very teacher-centric classroom and completely exam-oriented kind of summative assessments that you see happens in the present system of education. Next. So the question is, will this present system of education create a workforce for tomorrow's workplace? Will this education system nurture tomorrow's global citizens? And these are big questions that many schools and many colleges and many universities keep thinking of. Next. So what is it that is required for the future workplaces? What would future workplaces look like? What skills are required for the future? Definitely future workplaces demand workforce with 21st century skills. When we talk about globalization and when we look at extension of the boundaries between countries are fading fast, the world of tomorrow needs global citizens with broader perspectives and definitely higher order thinking skills. This is what is the need. This is what is required. Go to the next slide. Which employability skills are most desired by the industry? We say that, yes, they are attributes of employees that other than technical competencies that make an asset to the employer. So I'll just ask you to put on chat box now. I'll not go to the Mentimeter. What are these skills? What are the 21st century skills? I love to make it interactive. a professor who has taught English literature and history, loves children to talk and loves adults to talk. So yes, here you get lovely answers, critical thinking, fantastic, Anupama, that was very nice. Anybody else who wants to add, what are the employability skills? Yes, logical reasoning, Niyati, well done. Yes, Priya, problem solving. Jesse, digital skills, fantastic, Nilesh, well done. Consistency, communication. Thank you so much, everyone, for that lovely responses in the chat box. Thank you. Can we go to the next slide? Exactly what many of you have said. So which employability skills are most desired by the industry? And I think most of them came up from the audience. Go to the next slide. So what we really say is that these are some basic skills that you need to cover up in school. And when we see in schools, you really see people doing arithmetic, writing, reading, basic communication skills. However, the higher order thinking skills is what is really missed out, is problem solving, creativity and innovative thinking, decision-making skills, and the affective skills. I think that's another very important aspect of employability skills that we say. Interpersonal skills. How are we developing interpersonal skills of these students? I mean, if you see today's education system where children sit one behind the other, our system, our classroom environment, when you look at classroom environment and you see the children are put behind one another, how would they develop their interpersonal skills? How would they develop their social skills? The whole learning environment needs to be changing. The whole concept of developing the skills, right from infrastructure, from environment to pedagogy, and also curriculum is one of the most important areas to change. So yes, interpersonal skills, adaptability skills, flexibility, positive attitudes, motivation, and the most important one is self-management skills. Next. So I'd just like to share my reflections and my journey. Way back in 2000, I must say I started my research. I traveled around the world, right from Australia. I went to some of the best IB schools, international schools. I went to Cambridge. I traveled all around the world to see some of the best practices that I could bring into the country and look. I always felt children are children. They are same all over the world. Why is it that students in my class and my school don't question, don't debate, don't argue? And I realized it's the curriculum that does not encourage them to speak out, to debate, to kind of give their opinion, give their perspective. So looking at various curriculums around the world, I did a blueprint of my own curriculum and made sure how I integrate and embed all the skills that are required for them to be able to proceed from school to college and then into the industry. So looked at the various skills and looked at the various curriculums and benchmarked my curriculum to world standards, made sure that every teacher in the school is trained and enhanced their skills, made sure that all the parents in the community are given that awareness is what is required in the future. And I strongly agree with some of the speakers who spoke before this, is that we need to start this change right from school. And I'm glad that I had this opportunity to start it way back in 2000. Next slide. So what we did was created from content curriculum to concept curriculum. Concept-based curriculum is more application-based, more real-world examples, gave voice, choice, and ownership. I think these are three words that were most important in the curriculum. How can you give choices to students? Anything that you do, you need to tell them, okay, this is what is expected. Now you can use, you have a choice board and you can use this way of presenting it, this way or this way. Now I would want to do a rap song and present, somebody would want to art and present, somebody would like to write and present. Also look at their learning style. So gave them voice and ownership. It was more student-centric and the focus was on how to learn rather than what to learn. That was the key in making sure that you design the right curriculum and made sure that knowledge, understanding, and skills are more important than memory and speed, which is what most curriculums demand. And definitely added design thinking, STEAM, that is one major introduction into the curriculum, and also PSPE, we call it, that is physical, social, emotional, is the key. If my physical, social, emotional well-being is taken care of, my attainment and progress automatically will go there. So the key, the underpinning of all the curriculum is to make sure we touch on the physical, social, emotional well-being of every child. Next. So definitely, I think one was about the curriculum. The other was also how do you develop the effective higher order thinking skills, make sure that teachers are also connected. So we had designed, created active learning strategies, made sure that it's hands-on learning, minds-on strategies, and children love games, love quizzes, love polls. You must see the class with Mentimeter, with Padlet, with Kahoot. It's unbelievable to see the kind of skills that you develop and the fun that the children can have. And of course, introduction of MUN. We give a lot of global issues to the children. It's part of the curriculum. MUN is something, I must say, Niyati does it every year at all schools, and thanks to her, we partner with them. I think when they set up the MUN, when they set up TED Talks, when they take global issues and come up with great solutions, those are the times when they really build up their skills. So again, that was made as a part of their curriculum. Next. So I think Abhishek already talked a lot about learning agility just a few seconds back. So this is what really is the key. This is what we develop in the entire curriculum to make sure that children are reflective, they're communicator, and the most important one is risk taker. I keep telling children that until and unless you don't take risk and you don't fail, you will not know that you can be successful. The very reflection of my story, that if I had not 20 years back decided to move from the Indian curriculum to the international curriculum and make my own curriculum, I would not know how successful I am. I would say, oh, I'm very happy in my comfort zone. Let me not try. Let me not do some things. I may not be successful. So risk taking is another very important factor. I keep telling children that imagine if your father put you on a bicycle and said, learn to cycle, but don't fall. You would never learn to cycle. So it's very, very important. It's okay to fail. Sometimes it's okay to fail. So we build that learning agility. We make sure that we tell all children, you will get there. Some of you are here, some of you are here, and some of you are here. But finally, you all will get there. So that kind of confidence is something that we build in our children. And I'll share with you a lovely 1-minute video. And the next slide is about how a great, you won't believe while they were doing their learning and they came up, they initiated, grade 5 students initiated to make a movie on trophy hunting. They were doing an inquiry. They were doing a concept on how human activities impact animal welfare. And this word trophy hunting was something that really ignited the students, and they did a lot of research. I mean, it was unbelievable to see how they spread the word of trophy hunting, which not many people knew that it was legal in some countries. And then they thought, let's start and give a message to the larger community. They were awarded by PETA. I would like to share that movie. It's a 1-minute video. This was the award that they got by PETA, and they were basically on all the social media for the lovely video that they made to pass this message. So just for the audience, I'd like to share that 1-minute video. Sham, if you can share it. Niyati.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Animal Kingdom, ladies and gentlemen. I want to solve your problems. Truth being told, each one of you is a specimen. If you want, I can translate for all, starting from the hunter to the bear. But I have been told that you all have been educated here. So, let's start with Simba the lion. These toffee hunting companies are making me kneel. Because of this bird ain't getting any meal. Do what you want, line I'll kill every day. I don't care if it's a father, mother or bae. It'll be great if you throw your attitude in the dump. Do you know who my father is? Well, he is Mr. Trump. Tell us for recreation. May I ask if it's even legal? You all are so naive, and I have a reason to say so. Trophy hunting is legal in Argentina, Canada, and Mexico. A family adopted my son. I named him Champ. I'm glad he's not with me in this concentration camp. Please don't kill us. Please. We have lost all of our glory. Let few of us live in your child's bedtime story. Put away that fur coat! It's a sin! You covering yourself with someone's skin. For you, it's a beautiful fur coat that catches eyes. But to a mother, it's a memory of a baby's demise. Kill us, don't kill for fun.
So this was by 10-year-olds. Imagine, they wanted to spread the message to the community, and it was a great message that they spread. And this is what was the outcome of the curriculum that we have mapped. We also do various case studies and do role plays. They have a case study on AirAsia, and they actually come up with various role plays. Next slide. So this is about another case study that they had in their curriculum was about how a company bought oil and how they made sure that they extracted the good oil and sold to the third world countries the bad oil, and how it affected the people. And students had to brainstorm on ethical practices in business. It was really amazing to see how case studies can bring out the best out of the children. And such kind of case studies, this really developed their critical thinking skills as it, whether it's right to do something of this kind, whether it's ethical, and there were great discussions in the classroom. So this is some of the case studies that we use at school. Next slide. So the creative skills, I say again, students have an opportunity to express themselves and have their various personal views, emotions through art. And I think it was really nice to see Varun made art with doors, and he painted various doors, and he talked about how he expresses himself using various doors. And there's Rakshita who expects herself to just mannequins. It was really interesting to see how these children can express their beliefs and their thoughts through art. Next. Visual art is again a part, and this is our graduation ceremony. Next slide. And I'm glad that we must be doing something right. We have students like Pankuri, who passed out from the school and then went to do her undergraduate in the business BSc Economics and Finance from Podarwal College. And today she's successfully completed her master's in economics at University of Warwick. And now she's currently working with United Nations at Bangkok. We have another student, Rakshita, who was part of the school. Again, she went into the university, did her LSE, presently working as a vice president with Barclays Bank. And then we have another student, Hariharan, again, who's currently working with the National Bureau of Economic Research. So we must be doing something really right. Next slide. There's another student, again, working as a FAMCO as financial analyst again. Next. So I think I want to end with, since we live in an age of innovation, a practical education must prepare a man for work that does not yet exist and cannot yet be clearly defined. So I think I love this quote of Peter Drucker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lulla, for that enriching presentation and sharing your best practices with us from content to concept with such a wonderful example shared with us. We are sure your advice would help many of our attendees to learn and apply in their own environments. A positive step towards improving the employability of our youth is quintessential. May we now welcome our next sponsor, Emerson Migration Law. Can we please have the video?
Hi everybody, this is Ashwarya Samal here from Emerson Migration Law and Global Pathways Education and Migration Services. Emerson Migration Law is a boutique migration consultancy firm recognised as one of the foremost immigration practices in Australia. We have a team of qualified solicitors or immigration lawyers as well as registered migration agents who provide specialist advice on all aspects of immigration to Australia for both individual and corporate clients. We cover the full range of applications to enter or remain in Australia. We are highly trained in the relevant immigration legislation and are experienced in managing a wide range of visa applications. So the other Global Pathways Education and Migration Services, which is also an award-winning service. Myself and my legal team have a superior knowledge of the Australian qualification framework, which allows us to devise strategic educational and migration pathways for our clients. We optimise student success by truly taking the time to understand their goals and objectives, and then connect them to education providers with superior standing and innovative course offerings in light of the students' areas of interest. This is Emerson Migration Law and Global Pathways Education and Migration Services. Thank you.
International collaboration in higher education leads to breakthroughs in knowledge, the free exchange of ideas, and enduring bonds between institutions and nations. But it begins with connecting people. I am pleased to welcome the lady with strong resolve and vision, the Pro Vice Chancellor of University of Queensland, Australia, Dr. Jessica Gallagher. She leads a number of key institutional partnership activities, strategic engagement events, business development opportunities, and a wide range of programs designed to create change in global communities to extend the university's reputation and reach. Dr. Gallagher also leads the ongoing development of UQ's entrepreneurship strategy, encompassing high-level oversight of its ventures. The umbrella brand of entrepreneurial activities and programs with her leadership is expanding links with local, national, and international entrepreneurship ecosystems. Jessica is an adjunct senior lecturer in the School of Languages and Cultures, holds a PhD in comparative cultural studies, and is also the director on the board of the Kokoda Track Foundation, where she provides her expertise and support to improving the lives and futures of the Papua New Guineans. I welcome you, Dr. Gallagher. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the opportunity to join today. I'm just going to share my screen. So hopefully everybody can see that now. So hopefully everybody can see the screen. Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about the opportunities that Australia has in supporting the development of India's human capital, with a particular focus on some of the recent reforms within education and broad economic reforms for ongoing growth. So I'm just having a bit of trouble with my screens. Okay, great. So the relationship between Australia and India has been and will continue to be of increasing significant importance for both countries. As many speakers have spoken about today, India has the third largest economy, and with the second largest population in the world, with over 1.3 billion people, there's significant potential for Australia to work with India across a wide range of industries. And of course, very importantly, within the higher education sector. Within the next decade, India's population will overtake China's to become the world's largest population, with current indications suggesting that by 2035, India will be the most populous country. With that, you add a growing middle class and policy reforms that have created a true environment for growth. India's national priorities align very closely with those from Australia, looking at health and COVID-19 recovery, nutrition, sanitation, agriculture and food security, innovation and entrepreneurship, education and employability. So there's been quite a lot that's happened in recent years that really will support the continued growth of engagement between Australia and India, and that will support India's economic and education reforms. So India currently has, it's one of the largest education systems in the world, with close to 52,000 institutions. For a country like Australia, where we have only 40 universities, it seems hard to imagine that there could be a sector that's so large as the one in India, but 52,000 institutions. And by all accounts, that's not enough in terms of the training and human capital development needs for the country. The sector has rapidly expanded over the past 20 years, but many are concerned that far too few graduates are coming out of Indian higher education institutions with the employability skills that they need to be able to support economic growth within the country. It's estimated that over the next 5 years, India's youth population will continue to increase, meaning that the current education system will prove inadequate in accommodating the age group of 18 to 22. Similarly, there are quite a number of demands around online education, and the online higher education market in India will grow by over 10 times over the next 4 to 5 years to reach roughly $5 billion in the financial year of 2025. Many are now looking to India's new national education policy, the NEP, to bring about the education system reform required to truly address human capital needs within the country. So as you would all be aware, in July 2020, the Indian government released its new national education policy to guide the country's education reform. It was the first time in 34 years that the government undertook a substantial review of its education system. The NEP envisions a complete overhaul and re-energising of the higher education system in India to overcome some of the current challenges, including a fragmented higher education system, limited access in socio-economically disadvantaged areas, limited teaching and institutional autonomy, and in some cases, quite low standards of undergraduate education. The NEP aims to reform the current higher education system through some significant changes, including raising the GDP spend on education from the previous 4.43% to 6% to make India a global knowledge superpower, and moving towards having at least one multidisciplinary higher education system in or near every district. Also moving towards faculty and institutional autonomy and a light but tight regulatory framework for higher education. And increasingly a stronger focus on research and research outcomes from the education institutions in India. With the national education policy, India is working to ensure that half of all 18 to 21-year-olds are enrolled in a university by 2030, thus requiring training for more than 400 million people. To meet that goal, India would need to achieve a doubling of enrolments over the coming decade. Internationalisation is a key theme for the NEP, with the policy signalling the potential for top 100 universities in the world to establish campuses in India. Now, I'm sure that that's not going to be an easy project, but something that will attract lots of interest from Australian institutions, but also global players. Australia can certainly help to fulfil the demand for education by offering greater flexibility in how and when international students learn. And in doing so, we can also make a very positive contribution to the development of nations throughout the Asia-Pacific region. In addition to the national education policy, there's also quite significant economic reform that supports closer partnerships between Australia and India. Australia's position on engaging with India economically is guided by Australia's India Economic Strategy to 2035 that was written by UQ's Chancellor, Peter Varghese, for DFAT back in 2018. The purpose of this report was to assist the Australian government in looking beyond the immediate horizon and to provide a roadmap for unlocking opportunities for economic growth and cementing India as a priority economic partner for Australia. There is a growing and large middle class with increasing amounts of disposable income. And in the last 4 decades, India's per capita income has quadrupled, and over 200 million people have been lifted out of absolute poverty. India's economic growth will be driven by consumption and services. And some of the structural drivers of India's economic growth will include urbanisation of the world's largest regional population, the gradual movement of an informal economy, accounting for 80 to 90% of India's workers, into a much more formal economy, a young demographic with a mean age of 28, and considerable investment in infrastructure, which in many ways has held the country back in terms of economic growth, as well as, of course, that ambitious program to upskill more than 400 million Indian citizens over the next decade. The innovation and ecosystem is also growing rapidly. India is 40th in the Global Competitive Index, which jumped from 2017, jumped 31 ranks from 2014. Similarly, India lies on the 60th place in the Global Innovation Index. Despite these advancements in terms of the innovation ecosystem, spending on research and development still lags, with only 22 countries being in the world's top 2,000 and 2,500 R&D spenders. The combination of education and economic reforms presents some fantastic opportunities for Australia and India to come together to support the human capital development over the next 4 to 5 years. Of course, there are already a substantial number of programs that are supporting these efforts. And so when we look at enrolment of Indian students in Australia, there has been quite significant growth over the past 5 years. And this does speak to the continued demand within Indian institutions in terms of looking at academic partnerships. So growth in population, expanding middle class, and a rising disposable income, as well as the understanding about the value of international higher education, has meant that Australia has been well positioned to cater to increasing demands. The Australian government reported that more than 78,000 Indian students were studying in Australia in 2020, ranking second out of the countries with students that are studying in Australia. Enrolments show that more than 51,000 Indian students have enrolled as of April in 2021, with, of course, the majority of those students, or a large proportion of those students, studying with institutions online. And the table that I've got for you on the screen presents a picture of the Indian enrolments nationally, as well as those studying with Group of 8, so the research-intensive universities in Australia over the period of 2016 to 2020. But when we consider enrolments from other source countries for Australian higher education and international education, there is lots of opportunities to continue to grow these numbers. And the landscape is very much changing within the Australian higher education systems. So in his speech at the Universities Australia Conference just last month, the Federal Government Minister for Education and Youth, Alan Tudge, announced that the opportunity to diversify the education delivery models, and in doing so grow and reach massive markets around the world, which are requiring tertiary education, but not able to afford the full-time in-country experience in Australia or other rich countries, are quite simply enormous. And he did specifically reference the growing demand and desire from Indian students to access the quality education provisions in Australia. Minister Tudge suggested that in a decade's time, Australia should look to have 10 million international students studying for Australian qualifications that are reached through a combination of online, hybrid, and in-country models. And so this presents a significant opportunity for Australia to support India with their development ambitions as universities look to diversify their business models for delivery. It will no longer be the case that all students need to spend their entire degree programs in Australia, but rather, as indicated by Minister Tudge's speech, that there will be a desire to look at a wider, rich range of offerings that might be online, hybrid, but certainly in partnership with Indian institutions. Australian universities are already making a significant impact in terms of our partnerships and programs in India with Indian institutions. And so I did want to provide just a few examples of some of those. One, which is quite a long-standing collaboration, has been the relationship between IIT Bombay and Monash University with the IITB Monash Research Academy. This was established back in 2008 and has been a major Australian-India research collaboration focused on PhD training on a sizable scale. To date, up to 200 PhD students, 400 researchers and 400 research projects have been delivered through this collaboration. And the research themes are looking to address really significant challenges that exist for Australia, for India, and for the world. So looking at advanced computational engineering and manufacturing, infrastructure engineering, clean energy, water, nanotechnology, biotechnology, and of course, humanities and social sciences. Another example is the relationship that's been established through the Australia-India Institute, which was also established in 2008 and funded by the Australian Government's Department of Education, Skills and Employment in strong collaboration with the University of Melbourne. It's a national entity that brings in a number of Australian universities and is dedicated to the study and understanding of contemporary India and Australian bilateral relationship. It's an important institute in terms of focusing on the opportunities that exist between Australia and India. And a number of universities have looked to engage around this particular institute because of its focus on equity, education, health infrastructure, and governance. A further example is the Terry Deakin Nano Biotechnology Centre, which was established in 2011 by Deakin University with the aim of developing innovative nanobiotechnology solutions to address current challenges in the fields of agriculture and environment. Lastly, I wanted to do a spotlight on the University of Queensland's relationship with the Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi through our Academy of Research, or as we call it, UQIDA. The UQ-IITD Academy of Research was launched in 2018 as a strategic partnership with IIT Delhi. In the first 3 years of operation, the Academy has focused on the establishment of a large-scale joint PhD program, which we hope to attract some of the world's best talent. Through the joint PhD programs, students receive a generous scholarship, are able to fast-track their degree by working on a predefined project, benefit from dual supervision from across UQ and IITD, and access the facilities and resources from both universities. The interest from researchers across UQ and IIT Delhi has been incredibly strong. So we've already had more than 140 projects in the first 6 rounds of application and 51 joint PhD students, and we're expecting another 27 to join later this month. Through the program, the students do have an opportunity to spend time in both Australia and in India, ensuring that they are able to then gain access to networks and an understanding of the research ecosystems of both countries, which will make them incredibly attractive in terms of future employees, whether that be within the higher education sectors of both countries, but also within industry. And industry collaboration is a really important part of this project. And so at steady state, we expect that industry to fund roughly a third of scholars, but for the projects to be very much focused on challenges that Indian industry partners are identifying in order to be able to build and grow their companies. So through the examples that I've just provided, we think that there's a real opportunity to continue to transform the Indian and Australian education landscape and to focus on these global pressing issues like sustainable energy, water management, food security, and much, much more. Of course, that requires then support, and scholarships are really important. And so just to indicate some of the work that's happening at my university, University of Queensland, we are supporting a really large number of students through scholarship programs with UQ, but also working with a number of sponsors within Australian government and also Indian industry and government agencies to uplift and to support scholars to undertake these studies. And one great example is a relationship that we've formed with ASHA, which is an NGO that enables young people from the slums of Delhi to access higher education. And so we welcomed our first scholar through the UQ-ASHA partnership to UQ in January this year. And Amritesh is actually studying online. He's studying a Master's of International Economics and Finance, but we hope that with borders opening, he'll be able to study at UQ in the not too distant future. I do have a short video from Amritesh, but I'm really conscious of time. So I'll put that in the links to the chat so that you're able to have a look at that. But certainly very happy to have a conversation with any of you that might be interested in what's happening in the Australian-India partnership landscape and how we might work together more to support the R&D and the human capital development. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gallagher. Globalization has given us the power to co-create, rebuild, and develop the human capital strength of countries and take everyone ahead together with competitive advantage. Such has been the impact of your presentation. Thank you for reinforcing the importance of bilateral relations to promote long-term growth. We acknowledge the support of our next program sponsor, Marwadi University, a private university located in Rajkot, Gujarat, established in 2016 by the Marwadi Education Foundation through the Gujarat Private Universities Act 2016. It is a graded A+ by NAC. May we please have the video? Thank you, Sham. Santosh, over to you.
Thank you so much, Niyati, for getting us to the panel level. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon for my friends in Australia and Singapore. I'm Santosh Kumar, member of the Education Skill Development Committee at the ANZ India Business Chamber. I hold a day job as the CEO of a global media company, and I'm also an alumni of IIM Bangalore. I've been an investor for a while with a few edutech companies, and my recent investment has been in BizChamp, an experiential learning company. Let me introduce you to the distinguished panel that we have today. First up is Dr. Ashley Jones. She is the head of education at the Australian Council of Professions and the director of Zeta Consulting. Dr. Jones is a senior leader in the education, technology, and professional services sector. She has successfully worked with multiple stakeholders in academia, industry, state and federal governments. An SFIA accredited trainer, she has held research grants from JAB, Google, the Australian Council of Deans ICT, and the Victorian Education Department to research effective educational design solutions. She will be representing Australia in our panel. A warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thanks very much.
It's my privilege to introduce our next panelist, Mr. R. Ramanan. former Mission Director, Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog of Government of India. He's an alumnus of IIT Bombay and Harvard Business School. He's also the recipient of Udyog Ratna Award, Indira Gandhi Sadbhavana Award, and Rajiv Gandhi Shiromani Award. As the Mission Director of AIM, he has been instrumental in building over 10,000 Atal Tinkering Labs, over 75 Atal Incubation Centers, supporting over 2,000 startups across India. He has also been instrumental in putting together the Mentors of Change network with over 5,000 mentors across India supporting the schools. He will be representing India in the panel. A warm welcome to you, sir, Mr. Ramanan. Our next panelist today is Dr. Albi Anand Kurian, a doctorate program leader at the Management Development Institute of Singapore. Dr. Kurian is a marketing theorist and writer. He has been featured among 30 marketers from around the world. His recent marketing concept called Conflict as a Marketing Tool was published by Knowledge at Wharton. Dr. Kurian's book, The Peddler of Soaps, has been on the bestsellers list. He will be representing Singapore in the panel. So today we are discussing a very interesting topic called redefining international collaborations in the changing scenario. We've had a long time for various parts of the world where we've collaborated on the industrial level, but today we are moving more and more towards collaboration in the education sector as well. So my first question to our panelists is the current education system in each of our countries equipping our students to face the post-pandemic world? Dr. Ashley Jones, your views on this?
Thank you very much. I think that in the last year, we've seen a great pivot in terms of online and hybrid learning. But I think also the recognition of future skills that was beautifully brought out by a couple of the earlier speakers has meant that there's been a real need to work with industry in order to determine what those future skills look like. And, you know, we went through the list and everyone agreed what they were. And so universities, certainly in Australia, are now working very much on work integrated learning programs, internships, capstone projects that actually meet the needs of industry. And in what is very effective in Australia is that the professional associations, whether it's the accounting bodies or the engineering association, actually accredit the universities for those very programs. So universities have to meet the needs of industry or show that they're meeting the needs of industry going forward.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ramanan, your views on that? Is India ready?
Yeah, thank you, Santosh. And first and foremost, good afternoon or good evening to people who have logged on from all across the world. And I hope every one of you is safe in this COVID-19 difficult times, when all of you are practicing the safeguards that need to be practiced and advocated by your respective countries or by institutions. This is a very important question that you have asked, and I think we have had a galaxy of speakers address this particular topic. But I want to bring very sharp focus on the particular question that you asked, and that is our education system correct right now, or should it require radical transformations in a COVID-19 world and a post-COVID-19 world? Simple virus has disrupted countries all across the world, created grievous disruption to supply chains, created national lockdowns, created a fear of uncertainty about what the future holds for us tomorrow. What about other global pandemics in the horizon? What about climate change issues that we've been talking about but not yet experienced in its full ferocity? Or what about nationalistic fervors gripping countries and even more disrupting the supply chains? So it's very important when we look at education, are we creating the problem solvers of tomorrow? Are we creating the innovators of tomorrow? Education is no longer about acquiring a certificate, getting into good marks, getting into a good university, getting good marks again and going into a college, either in India or abroad, and getting good marks again and joining a job. Joining a job is today uncertain thing, because unless you are an innovator, unless you're a problem solver, unless you're able to deal with the situation and the uncertainty of the situation today, you won't be able to be effective either in your job or in your contribution to the rest of the world. So India is very acutely aware of that, and therefore with 1.4 million schools in our country, with more than 10,500 engineering and related institutions, with more than 39,000 colleges, and more than 150 million young students entering into the workplace over the next 5 to 10 years, it is very, very important for us to radically look at education and what are the game changers in education that we need to do. I think many of the earlier speakers spoke about many of these issues, but I'd like to particularly highlight the Atal Innovation Mission, which was launched by the Government of India in recognition of the fact that we need to create a nation of job creators, not just job seekers. We need to create the problem solvers and architects of tomorrow, not just that of running business as it is today. And therefore, there has been a tremendous focus on two things. One, how do you create a spirit of innovation, a spirit of problem solving, a spirit of learning to learn, as Ms. Lalla pointed out, or the ability to learn to unlearn what you have already learned, but which is no longer relevant for the current times. And how do you, second, build an ecosystem that is going to promote a vibrant ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship? How do you support entrepreneurship? Because unless you give these young students the ability to do that, they won't be able to succeed. And therefore, the Atal Innovation Mission has launched more than 10,000 tinkering labs across the country. And these tinkering labs are in schools between grade 6 to grade 12, where young students acquire not only knowledge of the latest skills that are fashioning the solutions in the marketplace, 3D printing, robotics, IoT, miniaturized electronics, augmented virtual reality, artificial intelligence, through do-it-yourself kits. They play with them, they tinker with them in an atmosphere of fun and learning. They are not burdened by marks. There is no credits associated with it, just the pure joy of creativity and learning to work with teams, acquiring newer skills that are relevant to the modern times, the 21st century, design thinking, critical thinking, teamwork, collaboration, communication, creativity, all of these things that were talked about, we are actually making it happen in our schools. And therefore, this is, I think, one of the most game-changing interventions that is being made in schools across the country. Every Atal Tinkering Lab is associated with 5 other schools that are not having an Atal Tinkering Lab. And so the impact is about 50,000 schools have access to these problem-solving, innovative thinking mindset. Now, the other problems that were brought about were also important. I just want to take 2 minutes on that. How do you ensure the quality of training becomes capable? How do you ensure access to the remotest parts of our country? Remember, we have 715 districts, 650,000 villages, and we have more than 8,000 small towns and cities in India. So the problem is not of education, the metro cities, which are 8 tier 1 cities, and I think they have the benefits of great education. The problem is our Abdul Kalams, who come from towns like Rameshwaram, or Ramanujan, who came from a humble town of Kumbakonam. How do you inspire young students from there to become the future Abdul Kalam, the future Steve Jobs, the future Satya Nadalas of India? That is where the access digital transformation and digital disruption plays a very important role. And we want to ensure that the gap that is there in the schools, in the teachers, is filled by mentors of change. So we launched one of the largest voluntary mentors of change network, consisting of professionals, people with PhDs or masters from the industry, who have been there, done that, who have knowledge of the latest technologies. So they become the mentors of change, and not only for the students, but also for the teachers. And in order to incentivize teaching, incentivize the teachers, because they need to get abreast with the latest technology shaping the world, we instituted what is called as teachers of change, exemplary teachers of change, so that they get recognition. It's not just money that will be helpful in incentivizing teaching. How do you recognize them on a national platform and give them the place that they deserve for creating the students of tomorrow and the innovators of tomorrow? So these are all the interventions that have happened at the school level. And at a university level, we have created this ecosystem of incubators, world-class incubators to foster world-class startups. Because you're in a university and you have no access to startup and entrepreneurship, there is no way you can create an entrepreneurial nation or breed the next set of entrepreneurs. So we have launched about 400 incubators in India today, and there are more than 55,000 startups. And this number is increasing, and India is one of the fastest growing startup ecosystem of the world. The importance of education is, how do we continue to breed them and to make them successful? That is where the international collaborations come in. And international collaboration today we have with Australia. We launched the circular economy challenges along with the Australian government, with both the prime ministers being present. We have launched with Singapore, Inspreneur, and education exchanges at the school level for Atal Tinkering Labs. We have done similarly for France. We have done it with Russia, with the Sirius Center. These collaborations are what is going to make education radically different from the way it has been administered. And a long answer to your short question, but I do hope that this has provided some thought for how we should proceed forward in all of this.
Thank you so much for this deeper insights, because we know a lot of things about what happens in the metro tier 1 cities, but it's very heartening to see the effort that the government has put in to push more and more of this entrepreneurial culture in the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 of India. Moving on to Dr. Kurian, what are your views? Singapore has been at the forefront of business education. How do you think Singapore is going to cope in the post-pandemic world?
Thank you so much, ANZ, and all the wonderful speakers who've come before me. I think I've learned a great deal, and I think all of you have given me a broad picture, the big picture of things that have been happening. So to give you a slightly more personal point of view, and this is about my experiences that I've had during the pandemic. One of the things I must say is that if we keep the tragedy of the pandemic aside, I would rate the pandemic as a wonderful event that I would welcome. It's revolutionized education in a way that it was long required. It was something that we were not doing, and I'm sure that it will remain as an integral part of the new educational systems that we set up. So I think that to that extent, I'm aside, I'm saying that it's a wonderful event that has happened to education, and we should take full advantage of this opportunity. The other thing that I learned, I'm just giving you a very personal viewpoint, is that we always thought of the new generation as being digital natives. I just don't think that's true. They are as clueless about learning on the digital medium as any of us, because they grew up learning with notebooks, they grew up learning with pen and paper. So when it came to the pandemic, the young students that I was interacting with, they were as clueless as anybody else. So there's some hope for all of us there, that even if we are much older, it has really nothing to do with age. It's really about, I think, your attitude to the digital medium. Do you welcome it, or are you fighting it? I think that is the principal question. If you look on it as a huge opportunity, a wonderful opportunity, then you're going to embrace it, and you're going to create really wonderful new opportunities out there. But if you're just learning it just to survive, perhaps then we have a problem. So we need to really look at that. And I think one of the segments that has done that are the working students whom I teach. These are the MBA students, these are the doctorate students who are working and who are doing their PhD and who are doing their doctorate and who are doing their MBAs part-time. These students have welcomed the pandemic in the sense of welcoming the digital way of learning. And I think we need to take a cue from them. They are really adapting very, very quickly. And I think that's one group that we should learn from. I think we really need to reorient ourselves into a paperless university. I agree it's not easy. Even every time I go into a huge university library and I see those vast spaces, there's no doubt that I enjoy reading a book in my hand. There's absolutely no doubt that I enjoy it thoroughly. But it's something that, at least at the university level, we'll have to slowly leave behind. So just as I said, these are very, very personal thoughts that I've just, I thought I would put it forward to you. Everybody has given, really very enriching ideas and insights. And, we have the broad picture. So I thought I would share some personal insights as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kurian. These insights are also being pretty helpful for us to understand the Singaporean perspective as also the global perspective for us. Moving on, my next question to all the panelists is, let's talk about educators. In India, we call them as the gurus. How do we enable them to build the cross-border collaborations? What path should they take to bring in a better or the best practices from the other parts of the world to ensure that the cross-cultural or the cross-border learning increases? Open to any of the panelists. Sure, sir. Raman Savia.
I think you'll have to unmute yourself, sir.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I think it's a very important question. You see, we are facilitating all sort of exchanges between countries, okay? We have economic exchanges, we have startup exchanges and all that, but we are not having any real movement on teacher exchange. I think one very important thing is you should have teacher exchanges between universities from India and the United and different parts of the world. And that is going to be of tremendous value, because when I talk of teacher exchanges, it's not just one way of some teachers going from India to Australia or to New Zealand or to Singapore to learn about how it is happening. The teachers from there should come here, and the environment here, the challenges here, the methodologies and the pedagogies that would be more effective here in India are very, very different. And we have a challenge of 26 different languages at a minimum. And there are, of course, 100 languages in India. And how do you teach very effectively when you have so many languages? It is easy to adopt one language in a particular country and teach in that particular language. But this is reality here. And so very often people who think that this is the best practice that can be easily duplicated or replicated, it's not so, because the environment, the conditions are very different. The second is, I do think corporates should play a very important role in education. I know that this happens in the United States. A lot of large companies support schools, universities, and so on. But in India, we need to really notch it up to a different level. We in Atal Tinkering Labs, Atal Innovation Mission, and one of the things, because I come from the private sector, I realized that this particular big gap is there between corporates playing an active role in education. And so we encourage partnerships of adopting tinkering labs and thereby adopting a school. We said India has CSR grants available. So we said, can you not bring, and especially the multinational companies like IBM or Dell and so on and so forth, they all started adopting tinkering labs. SAP has adopted about 200 tinkering labs. Dell has adopted about 150 of them and so on. Now, what has happened as a result of this is they also have school educational programs in many other parts of the world. And now they are able to bridge the gap and bring these people together. When they are adopted, when they saw something wonderful happening here, they wanted to share it with the rest of the education system which they are supporting in other parts of the world, and vice versa. So I think teacher exchanges and global exchange and country to country agreements on having university professors, teachers, students exchanges will go a very long way. And building this pan network, you have an Indian diaspora, for example, in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. How do you leverage that diaspora who are all doing very well in being able to support education requirements in India? Because they have been the beneficiaries of great education here and overseas to have come to the point where they have arrived. So how do we bring them very actively? And that's where I think ANZ, IBC can play a very important role in pulling the diaspora together and making them an active part and a vibrant part of building the educational system.
Yeah. Just to take it forward from what Mr. Ramanan said, the boundaries will all disappear. The borders will all disappear. So the moment you have a digital education system, Indian universities can take advantage of anybody in Australia, anybody in any part of the world. Similarly, I would say that professors from Singapore as well can contribute to Indian universities in a way that we never could before. Earlier, I still remember that when I had to attend a conference, it was a month-long preparation for it. There were tickets that had to be booked. There were hotel bookings. There were visa requirements, and quite often one would just say no. Whereas, we are attending a conference like this at a very short notice, and it's wonderful. And if we can just broaden this, if we can just take it to big cities, take it to small towns, take it to, I don't know how the mechanics of it will work in villages, but if we can just broad base it, it's a whole new, wonderful, exciting opportunity that has opened up.
I couldn't agree more. If you think about how we are now totally online, and I totally understand the issues with rural India. Indeed, we have the same in rural Australia, not obviously to the same degree, but, similar issues. But the fact of the matter is, 1/10 of PhDs around the world are Indian. So that diaspora is huge, and the ability to be able to build some sort of contra deals with all those that are fortunate enough to get a PhD. You know, there's that corporate social responsibility to be able to give back, irrespective of where you are. And we do have the online abilities now to be able to do that. So it really is great institutions like this that can pull these initiatives together and actually be the front leaders and forethought to bring it together.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting to understand, to think of this teacher exchange program. We've heard of student exchanges, but I think the world needs a teacher exchange program now.
Absolutely.
Right. My next question is...
I just want to add one more thing. Sure. And that is, there can be collaborative research between universities for using the latest tools on AI, augmented reality, virtual reality to enhance education collaboration and be able to bring the benefits of that to people who are not able to travel, who are not able to be there. And that's where the digital disruptions and leveraging these emerging technologies can be a great use in disseminating quality education.
As can open source models that can be freely available. There's a great initiative happening actually with Deakin University at the moment within refugee camps, being able to provide education to those that actually already have qualifications, but they're not recognised within the countries in which they're situated. And so to be able to work with them and to be able to offer them models of education, to be able to uplift them to very quickly enter the workforce is the type of stuff that's also incredibly powerful.
Yeah, it's a great segue that we have right now talking about the online education, right? I mean, this whole event itself is, we're witnessing that completely online and from various cities across the world. Now, looking at the online education, being at the forefront of providing the best education for students who are, in the tier 2, tier 3 of various parts of the world. My question now is to Dr. Albie Ekurian as well as Dr. Ashley Jones. Do you see this surge in online education create an opportunity for offshore campuses in India by the leading universities in Australia and Singapore? Do you see that they are going to tap into this large market in India and will be able to provide some of the topmost courses for us?
Ashley, will you go first?
Thank you very much, sir. Look, it's enormous, absolutely. I think that in some ways, as Dr. Albie said earlier, if we put aside the horrendous circumstances in which we have come to where we are, the very fact is education is now going to be revolutionised. Within the next 3 to 5 years, unless every educational, certainly within Australia, every educational institution is not able to offer partnerships, institutional partnerships around the world, online, and maybe some hybrid, but most definitely the opportunities are absolutely enormous. The appetite is certainly there. It's ensuring and maintaining the rigour, and also ensuring that we can also meet not a Eurocentric way of educating, but ensuring that we are able to find a global way of operating that meets the needs of the world. But it's certainly there. The appetite and thirst is there.
Absolutely. I think I completely agree with Ashley. I think if we move in this direction as much as we are moving now, even after the pandemic is over, I think the borders will really collapse. And I think there's absolutely no reason why Singapore universities shouldn't collaborate with universities in India, similarly with Australian universities, etc. I think it's just something that is just waiting to happen. And it's something that's so exciting. Of course, there are lots of modalities, lots of legislation, all that in the infrastructure, the frameworks, etc. All that needs to be sorted out, and it will take, I don't visualize it happening very quickly. But because it's been kickstarted by the pandemic, I see it happening a lot more quickly than it would have ever happened before.
And in fact, I would also argue that if educational institutions don't meet the need, then there will be the entrepreneurs and the innovators that will take that over. the medieval education system that we are all still reliant on is going to have to bend in order to be able to meet the needs of 4.0 post-COVID, etc. And so unless we keep up, and yes, I totally agree with you, Albie, you know, yes, we've still got to keep the qualification frameworks and the robustness, etc. But we are going to have to find a way to move agilely or we will be left behind.
Absolutely. If universities don't keep pace, I think, yes, I think the entrepreneurs will take over. And as Ashley said, and I think it would be absolutely justified as well, you know.
I think if I can add to what was being said, I just want to share some of the things that were happening in India during this COVID-19 crisis, and which shows that online is here to stay and is going to really expand in a very, very big way. We launched what are known as Atal Tinker from Home modules, because we didn't want the students during the pandemic who are sitting down at home to waste and you know, just idly do something. And so we launched Tinker from Home modules. And believe it or not, we had more registrations and more learnings and more certifications during this COVID-19 year than we had in the previous 3 years when we had blended, you know, classroom at ATL Tinkering Labs and so on. We launched courses on digital creativity and skills. We launched on AI, basic AI and do-it-yourself AI, artificial intelligence. We launched on game development because a lot of children are playing games. So we said, why don't you create your own game? And we developed, along with Dell Technologies, we developed game modules. We launched 3D design module for 3D printing because now 3D printers are available everywhere. But how do you do 3D design? And all of these, and then we launched programming courses for young children. We had more than 22,000 registrations of teachers who certified themselves on programming. Now, this was unheard of in India, but because of this COVID-19, because of online access, because of quality teachers coming in, because of using technology platforms for self-learning and self-development, the people were able to learn so much very quickly. And now this has become mainstay in all the colleges and in the schools. Similarly, when we launched between the countries, between India and Russia, we had co-innovation online, where we had a bunch of 50 students from Russia and 50 students from India identified a project, and they did online co-innovation and presented those. Of course, where they had access to physical labs and so on, they went and tested their prototypes, but they created the prototype of innovation. But today, because of simulation, you are able to actually simulate that innovation, and you are able to see how this innovation is going to behave. So, this is a time of great creativity for schools to see how to leverage the online medium to be able to better disseminate. One of the fastest growing startup areas in India is education. EdTech startups are really growing, and you know that Baiju, which is now a household word in India, is having one of the largest evaluations in the marketplace. And it's a online educational tool for the students. So I do think that there is a great opportunity. I just want everyone to know that the government of India has launched an initiative called Samsiksha. I'm on the board of that. And that is for developing a complete online university in India, which will be recognized by the government of India, and whose courses, if you undergo, you will also get credits in various institutions who are partnering us. Now, the advantage of an online university is you are able to get the creme de la creme of teaching content. We are partnering with Coursera, we are partnering with all the others to get the material which is already there. And we have people who get certified on conducting training. And therefore, you have the best of best worlds. A school need not, or a university just doesn't have to depend on its own faculty. Their faculty is able to grow. And secondly, you are having access to other faculty. And thereby, you really improve the quality of education.
This is a very tricky topic that we are talking about, the startups disrupting the traditional education world, right? And there are certain positives, like Mr. Ramanan said, the creme de la creme of the teachers and the content can be provided. But in this challenging world that we are in, we are witnessing a tussle between the traditional education and e-learning. How do you find the right balance in this globalized world, so that we don't miss out the positives of the traditional education as well? Open to all panelists.
Well, that's a tough one, because there's no reason why traditional education and digital education can't fit in. Meaning, what are we talking about traditional education? We mean, okay, the teacher is somebody who's dedicated. The teacher is like a guru. The teacher is like a semi-parent. The teacher is like a guide, like a friend of the student. All that will remain. There is absolutely no reason why the teacher cannot be as dedicated, as loving, as fond of his students as ever in the digital medium. All that we are saying is that the medium is going to change. It's the medium that that is going to change. The two people at either sides of it, the teacher and the student, are still going to be the same. So it's actually just a medium change. The medium that we're using.
Sorry, I did not mean to interrupt you.
Please come in, Ashley. Yeah, I was.
No, but I agree with you 100%. But I also think if we go to Dr. Bandana's conversation earlier, it is also about empowering the learners. So traditional has a great place, but we need to be able to get to Ramanand's perspective of entrepreneurs. People need to be able to problem solve, critically think, be agile, start to think outside the box. And I think that those abilities to bring people online from various different cultures and different parts of the world is the way that we're going to explode that, and we're going to be able to really develop thinkers that are going to be able to solve those issues around climate change and environment and all of those things. We've got youngsters that are really hungry and pretty angry about the way that some of us older people have left the world. So those collaborations actually will be very powerful. So yes, of course, traditional education has an enormous part, but we need to be able to stretch those boundaries to make sure that we build agile thinkers.
One little point I would like to add about, because I've been, exposed to students in India as well as students all over the world. I think there is something about the Indian psyche which takes to the digital medium very, very easily. For instance, Singapore is one of the, I think it was voted number 2, right, in digital, in the digital economy, etc., etc. But all that has come from the government. It has come top down. It has been a top-down approach. Whereas in India, what is quite heartening, and I'm saying this is something that portends well for the future of Indian education, Indians take to the digital medium very, very easily. They're very comfortable in it. They took to it long before the government was encouraging it. And that is something that could be a very valuable asset for Indian students.
Mr. Raman, I may just add to this. I really don't see any conflict between traditional and the modern. What the modern digital disruptions are doing is overcoming the limitations that traditional education had. But it is not a substitute for traditional education. I mean, what is traditional education? You had a classroom training, you had students coming there, you had a teacher who knew every student, who could look at every student, what they're doing and so on. You cannot have a substitute for that at all in the digital medium. So today we are having a problem of COVID-19 and therefore the inability to organize physical classes and so on and so forth. But that's going to pass soon. But what is not going to pass is the fact that digital interventions are now going to be a reality and is going to supplement and complement in a very, very value-adding manner whatever traditional education was having limitations in. And therefore, in fact, what we are doing right now is we have organized what are known as mobile science and mobile tinkering labs, so that these mobile labs will go to villages, and you will have some of the best courses conducted by some of the best teachers being online relayed through this. So the mobile lab is where students can come in. You can put a big screen, you can have an interactive scenario with all the students in the village because they are not able to go to a school. You get the best quality education, but you will supplement it with teachers who are accompanying that tinkering lab or the mobile science lab, and they're able to answer all those questions and actually do hands-on experiments for the children to do that. Now, this combination would not have been possible pre-digital world, but now all of this is possible. And therefore, the way I see it is that digital education and digital transformations are going to enrich greatly the traditional education, and the value of traditional education can never be lost.
I would absolutely agree with that.
I mean, there's a very interesting question from Jeff Martin in the chat window. I would like to take that. He says countries are not recognizing other countries' educational qualifications, and this is slowing down the potential required skilled workers. What are your views on that? We're talking about international collaboration, but if the countries don't, or the regulators do not recognize other university degrees, how do we move forward in this globalized era? Mr. Ramanan, your views, would India be open to recognize an Australian education, or would we push our universities to be, or our degrees to be recognized in the Australian or the Singaporean domain?
Yeah, I think with greater international collaboration and with the opening of digital medium, this is going to happen. Of course, regulatory rules and laws, governments take their own time depending upon what is happening in the government and the government's priorities. But this is bound to happen because this is a big bottleneck. If you have a taxi driver in Australia and he wants to drive in India or vice versa, and you do not allow them, you could have an additional test if you want, but you should give basic, just like universities now are accredited, many Indian universities are, if you have graduated from this university, Australian universities and American universities and New Zealand universities accept that. So this accreditation, global certification programs will become a reality. And I think digital technology can help in making that a quicker reality, because you can conduct tests remotely. You can have simulation tests for a driver, for example, remotely through centers here, and then you can qualify them. So one should leverage technology, but I agree this is a problem that needs to be solved, and it should be solved quickly.
I also think that a role of micro-credentials is actually going to work with that, digital badges with metadata where the qualification sits behind it, global passports. We are starting to open up in Australia where, heaven forbid, Australian universities are starting to recognise their own. So Jeff, I totally understand what you're talking about. We don't even recognise within Australia each other's to be able to do credit bearing into each other's degrees, let alone around the world. But micro-credentials based on qualification frameworks that meet needs are going to be a thing of the future. They're already working incredibly well within the States. Australia is starting to build, Europe too. And I think that especially when we start to look at industry, education, professional associations working together to recognise common standards around those areas, we might be able to push governments and regulatory bodies, but it is actually going to have to be a groundswelling, because if we wait for the regulators, we're going to be waiting for a very long time.
Absolutely. I think, the regulations will be a little slow in coming because governments need to be prodded, but I think they will be prodded. The way I see it, it will be like, just as you have multinational companies, you will have multinational universities. And these multinational universities will not really belong to any particular country. They will be a university which is spread across different countries, and they will have their student bodies, and it will be really a global university in the true sense.
Yeah. So when we talk about the multinational universities, I think the startups have taken a quick jump there. Like we talked about Byju's. Byju's has been pushing the boundaries. They've been extending the domains of learning. They've been extending they've been collapsing borders and taking Indian teachers, taking global teachers across the world now. But do you see any of the traditional universities be in the realm of doing that in the near future? Do you see any chances that any of our universities, maybe Singapore, Australia, or Indian universities, taking that leap?
We are doing it in a small way, in the sense that all of us, I don't just mean Singapore universities, I think all of us are now, utilizing and taking the opportunity of getting faculty, listening to lectures from all over, etc., etc. We are all doing that. But yes, institutionalizing it, making it a part of our university framework, that is what is required. And I think that, I agree, will take a little time. But if everybody keeps pushing, it will happen. And I have a feeling the push will come from
external factors.
External factors. And in a sense, I'm almost hoping that entrepreneurs will jump in and goad all the traditional universities to start moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Ramanan sir, if you want to go ahead, please.
Yeah. See, I think there are initiatives already existing and they are being practiced, but it's not well known. And I think a forum like this should really advertise this. Why I'm saying this, my wife, she took an online MBA program from what is known as U21. And I think there are 21 universities across from Australia, Singapore, UK, and so on, who joined together to offer this online MBA program. And it was a 2-year program, and she went through a proper program. And it was a wonderful program. I was just watching her taking it, and I was envious because you had virtual classrooms. Every classroom, you had students from China, from Singapore, from India, from Australia. They formed a team together. They were given joint case studies. They discussed with each other online. Everything was done. The teacher used to come online. They used to give her a whole lot of programs. And finally, she got a degree from the University of Melbourne for an MBA. Finally, the student had the option of selecting which university you want the degree from. It was equal. It didn't matter whether, it was not based on marks or anything. It was a U21 university collaboration. I really wondered why this was not ramping up in a very big way. And I think this is going to be the way of the future, where you have multiple universities. You don't have to take, the burden gets shared. You have teachers from all over, tremendous cross-learning, cultural learning. And this is the way of the future. I think we should all exploit that.
So can we safely say that we've entered an era where we don't really worry about the degrees and certificates, but focus more on the skills and the skill development sector?
Absolutely.
Is that the era we are in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that
in a sense, I think what Mr. Ramanan said was, the example was very interesting, because the MBA that Mr. Ramanan's wife took will actually prepare her for work far better than a conventional MBA in a classroom. Because today, even at the workplace, you're getting globally dispersed teams. You're working with somebody in the US, you're working with somebody in Australia, you're working with somebody in some other city. So in a sense, Mr. Ramanan's wife is actually better equipped to cope with that workplace than somebody who's studied in a classroom, in a physical classroom in one particular city with with those traditional lecturers, etc.
And one of the things we're seeing in Australia is transformational industry work integration. So, for example, the very large banks here or the telcos are actually coming up with training programs that they then want universities to endorse and actually give credit into a degree. So they're actually even taking the education themselves and saying, we're going to put together a very well put together, it's mapped to AQF, but these are the skills we want our guys to develop. And so consequently, we want you to award them whilst they're working on the job, building, project development for $200 million, etc. So, it's really robust in work situ projects they're working on. And then they want the universities to award against it. So that flip we are starting to see, industry is demanding that universities start to look at new and agile ways to give degrees.
That's a good segue to move into the industry academia collaboration, right? So we've had a few spurts of activities in that domain in India. But is it already there? Do we think we need to push more for those industry certified courses? What are your views on that?
I think it's not just about certified courses. It's about, being completely in tune with industry needs. I would say to some extent, the medical field does that pretty well. See, medical colleges are attached to hospitals. So medical students are not being, they are exposed to the lectures, but they are also being exposed to what is happening in the hospital itself. Now, I agree that for an MBA, that's not really very practical. But maybe once we have the digital medium coming in, it opens up that possibility as well, that you're going to be, that you're going to become a much closer part of companies, and companies are going to become much closer part of universities. For instance, earlier, if I had to have somebody coming in from, say, an advertising agency to talk to my marketing students, I would have to organize it. I would have to invite him. Then he would have to organize his schedule. He would have to physically come over, etc., etc. But now it's so much easier, right? Any advertising professional is quite happy to say, oh, okay, at 7:30 to 7:30 p.m. to 8 o'clock, I will talk to your MBA working students, and we'll have a chat. And in a sense, that that kind of is an informal way, at least, to start a collaboration between industry and universities.
Yeah, I think unless you have one portion of your university training as working in industry as an internship, you're not going to bridge this gap. Some of the universities in India are doing a fantastic job on that. I know BITS Pilani, for example, they have 2 semesters of theirs in the 4-year course that they conduct. 2 semesters are in the industry. And it's done in a very beautiful manner. There is a teacher or a professor who goes along with the students to a particular university, and they give them problems which the industry is facing. So there is a training component, where you become familiar with and fill the gap between what the academic university is teaching and what the industry really needs. And secondly, you get a real on-the-job training program, just like Dr. Albi had mentioned, in the hospitals, the medical students get on-the-job training, and therefore they become effective doctors. Imagine you're giving your hand to a doctor who has never seen a hospital or a patient. You would not be able to trust that. But we are ready to do with engineers, or we are ready to do with MBA students who have never seen what the reality of the world is out there like. So I think it's very important to fill this gap, and internships or projects or at least 1 semester of your program being associated and giving credits for that. Because if you don't give credits for that, the students are not going to take it serious. They're going to just say, I got a good 3 months off, not having to study, and I'll just go there. So you have all of these opportunities, and I think you should bridge the gap.
Dr. Ashley, any last views on this from your side?
I just want to say that I'm just so excited about what's happening within the Indian education environment. Can I just say we are not doing nearly as much in Australia, and so it's going to be very exciting to see by 2030 where you are, with all of those amazing areas that you have to fulfill. You're certainly doing some amazing stuff, and I really do believe, and I hope Dr. Albi would agree, that there's so many opportunities to be able to liaise and to collaborate and to just take everything to the next level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Albi Kurian. Any final points that you want to make, because we're ending?
Absolutely. There's a very, very exciting future ahead for education. I'm actually, in all the years that I've been in education, perhaps this is the time when I've been most excited. This is the time when I've been most energized, most enthused about the future to come. And I genuinely believe that we are on the cusp of really wonderful things that will happen.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kurian. Ramanan sir, any last words on the whole situation that we are in and the moment ahead?
I think this is a watershed moment in the history of the world in many ways, COVID-19. And as Dr. Albi also rightfully mentioned, while there have been many negatives about the COVID-19, the positives are that this is allowing us to rethink and reimagine a new world order. And I think we have to bring the school to home. We need, that's the opportunity here. It is not just going to a school, but how does your home become your school, and how does the school become your home? And both of these are possible because of digital intervention, digital transformations. And I think there's a great opportunity for us to learn from each other. Dr. Ashley said she's envious about what's happening in India, but I have to say that 7 of your universities among the top 100, and India still has only 1 amongst its 10,559,000 colleges in the top 100. So we have a lot to learn, and Singapore similarly has made great advances in learning. And I think forums like this are very important to deliberate, to think about, and to further act upon. I do hope that there's an action plan following this. I'll be very happy to be a part of any actioning that needs to be done at the Indian level. But I do think that is a tremendous opportunity for us to collaborate and make a difference and make an impact in the educational sector in the world.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's just been so insightful for the last 40 minutes. It's probably my best 40 minutes spent in the whole week for me. And the insights are so engrossing, and it's been very informative. I see the chats that are coming up and the kind of discussion we're having, parallelly on the chat window is also very interesting to see that, and everybody is enjoying this whole conversation. To conclude, to summarize all the discussion, probably I've written a few notes here, and let me read out that. In the post-pandemic world, in the Black Swan event that we are currently in, education will be a blended format, right? That's what we are all looking forward to. Online education will complement the traditional learning. That's what we've heard from the panelists. We are moving into the school from home era. We've been in the work from home era, but probably we are more in tune towards the school from home era. My daughter, she's spent about a year and a half completely schooling from home now. Teacher exchange program is a great idea. I think that's one big takeaway for me. I'm sure we as a cross-border international business chamber of commerce will be able to add a lot of value and a lot of collaborative activity there. I'm sure the chamber will take this up. So to conclude, if I have to just summarize in one sentence, as the popular adage goes, it takes a village to raise a child. We are probably moving into the era where it takes a global village to raise a child. Do you all agree on that?
Lovely summary.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Albi Kurian, Dr. Ashley Jones, and Mr. Raman. It has been a pleasure hosting you all here. And over to Niyati now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. A heartfelt gratitude to the eminent panelists for addressing the significant topic for the summit and sharing real examples for the current and the future scenarios and the many ways we can leverage through the ANZ India Business Chamber to forge synergies across Australia, Singapore, India, and bridging the gap to find some change by 2030. Ladies and gentlemen, this is just the beginning of a new chapter in realizing where we are and where we need to be. I would now like to introduce a true innovator and change maker at the ANZ India Business Chamber, Mr. Srinath Birur, to share his concluding remarks. Mr. Birur is the Chief Innovation Evangelist at Excelsoft Technologies, the Regional Mentor of Change at Atal Innovation Mission, and Chairman of the Entrepreneurship Committee at the ANZ India Business Chamber. A mentor for many, Mr. Birur.
Thank you, Niyati, and thanks to all. I'll start with one a small joke, one sentence actually. Thanks to Corona. Why? Because I met great speakers today. The great people on this platform. If not, I don't know, we would have met, this kind of people and the great people. So let me, this is the last session of our program today. Let me start with, thanks to all of you. Thanks speakers, wonderful speakers, actually, right from the, we started with Jeff Mazzini and Dr. Jessica, all great speakers today, exchanged a lot of insights on this education and the reforming and the skills and the cross-border and the international collaboration and so many. It was a great actually. And definitely one of the highlight of this whole program in the last 2.5 hours, 3 hours was panelist session actually. Great topics. It was completely awesome topics. In fact, were discussed by Dr. Albi and Ramanan sir and Ashley Jones. I know because I have been interacting with Ramanan sir for many years. Absolutely wonderful panel round, and a great moderation by Niyati. Thanks to Niyati for entire right from the beginning to the end. You have done a wonderful moderation. And Santosh, absolutely fantastic, meaningful questions you have asked, and we also got insightful answers. Definitely, thanks to all the sponsors, AMC Training Group, Saraswat Bank, and PSGR Krishnamal College, all supported for this program. I also thank Secretariat of ANZ IBC, that is KB Ashok, Deputy Director, and Asha A, who have been a great support and the coordination. And MD, our Managing Director, Mr. Santosh, who has been instrumental actually to bringing all of you and all of us together and in this platform and exchange a lot of great things. And audience, definitely all the audience from Singapore, Australia, India,
you have been, we have been interacting from the last 3 years, irrespective of the time. I never, right now only I'm looking my watch. Till now I haven't looked my watch. Actually, it was a great interaction, and thanks and a great support for exclusively the press and the media, especially the Economic Times and Times of India. They have covered this program today, so it was a great traction they have built for us. And from my heart, especially I thank Dr. Sandeep Sanchetti sir, who is a chairman of Education and Skill Committee, because I know him for many years. He's a wonderful person, a great man actually to be, associate with him, and definitely he has led this committee actually to this, a wonderful session. In fact, absolutely, no hesitation in thanking him with a great this one, sir. Sir, thank you very much once again. But however, I'll close with the remarks that thanks to all of you, thanks to Mr. Santosh, MD of the chamber, and thanks to Santosh Kumar. There are two Santosh, or the other Santosh Kumar, who really came out with the great questions. Niyati, wonderful job, and final thanks to Mr. Sham, actually, who coordinated well with all this tech team, capturing the video, relaying video and audio, no glitches, and also no glitches at all. There was a small glitch, but it was not a glitch at all. Absolutely, Sham, thank you very much. Thanks to all of you. We all had a great session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Birur. So I believe we have now come to the conclusion of the Education and Skill Development Summit 2021. I know you still don't want this to end, but we do hope that you shall be taking back learnings with this experience, and hope to see you again in the future, online or in person. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
My last word to all of you: stay safe, be happy.
Santosh, can we keep our core committee members in the session for another 2 minutes? You are able to listen to me?
Yeah, sure.
Let the core committee members remain for another 2 minutes. Is that fine? Zef, Niyati, Santoshi, Mr. Birur, if you can continue to be online for a couple of more minutes.